want to ask you about Jay-Z's album.
I think it's genius. I mean, like all of his projects, I thought it was really great.
Jay-Z new video with Nas and DJ Khaled, it's a scene with checkerboards. These are all occult Satan.
It was a moment that shook the music world. Few saw it coming, and yet when the ruling was announced, the reaction was immediate. Remir, a man who has long claimed to be Jay-Z's biological son, emerged from court with a major legal victory. The judgment was staggering, $1.66 billion. This wasn't a private settlement or a behind-closed-doors agreement. It was a court-ordered decision with the potential to affect everything from tour revenues to streaming rights within the Roc Nation. Empire reports suggest that Beyonce, often seen as a symbol of control and precision, has been deeply affected by the ruling. Sources describe her as moving through her usual routines while managing a state of controlled concern. The outcome raises numerous questions about the future of Roc Nation and how this decision will impact the careers, finances, and public image of those involved. Fans and industry insiders alike are watching closely, waiting to see what happens next.
I have no felonies, I'm not crazy or none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And it seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything, so, I don't want to see him go down for something that, you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
Jay-Z has managed to sidestep the issue. He's avoided DNA testing, dismissed the claims, and kept his image polished as one of music's most untouchable figures. The accusations often seemed like background noise, never breaking through the shield of power he built around himself. But Remir's court win changed everything. This isn't just another filing or rumor. It's a legal decision that puts direct pressure on Jay-Z, stripping away the protection he has relied on for so long. The judgment makes the situation impossible to ignore. A $1.6 billion payout isn't small, even for someone with Jay-Z's wealth. It's not the kind of money that disappears quietly. This level of financial hit could lead to major consequences: assist sales, disrupted brand partnerships, and nervous investors rethinking their stakes. Time is now a factor. Each day without resolution adds more weight to the situation. The longer it lingers, the more it stains his reputation and raises doubts about the stability of everything he has.
Beyonce for sure. I love her. I love Beyonce. Jay-Z too, I really admire the both of them.
And then there's Beyonce, whose entire career has rested on precision, discipline, and control. Her image has been one of near perfection, carefully guarded from the noise of gossip. But now her marriage is at the center of a storm that even she cannot fully manage. Reports suggest that she has already delivered an ultimatum in private. The demand is simple but heavy: resolve this case before it reaches a breaking point, or risk everything they have built together as a couple. The pressure is no longer just financial, it is personal. This moment forces an impossible calculation. Beyonce has stood by Jay-Z through other public challenges, but those were different. This isn't a fleeting scandal or an internet rumor. It is a documented legal judgment that carries not just money, but moral weight. The most difficult part may be the nature of the allegations. They stretch back decades to a time when Remir's mother was underage, making the case more than just a financial dispute. It becomes a moral and reputational test with lasting implications. How does a family navigate that kind of headline? How do you turn a billion-dollar judgment tied to such allegations into a backdrop for a world tour? The contrast between their brand and this reality is stark and almost impossible to reconcile. For Beyonce, the concern goes beyond stages and cameras. There are 3 children at the center of this storm. Shielding them from the inevitable questions and whispers at school becomes a task no parent would want to face. Every headline pulls their names closer to the chaos, and every unanswered question makes the silence louder. The stability of their family is no longer just a private matter. It has become tied to one of the biggest public scandals in music history.
Oh, no, that was it. No, when I get nervous, I tell the truth.
Industry insiders are whispering about quiet calls to high-profile divorce attorneys. The conversations are discreet, exploratory, but significant enough to keep the rumor mill alive. These are the types of discussions that, once started, rarely fade away without consequence. And each delay Jay-Z's legal team secures in court seems to cost Beyonce time in protecting her narrative. Her inner circle reportedly fears that the damage is already spreading. Luxury partners are said to be watching with caution, while endorsement talks have slowed or even been put on hold. In her world, optics are the currency of business, and right now those optics are showing cracks. For someone who has built a flawless brand, this level of scrutiny is destabilizing. What complicates matters even further is the possibility of a new wave of claims. Ramir's courtroom victory doesn't just validate his story, could open the door for others who have long been dismissed. One name being mentioned again is Lita Mezer, a woman from Maryland who has claimed 4 years to be Jay-Z's daughter. Her story has floated in the background for a long time, never gaining traction beyond gossip and brief headlines. Jay-Z himself has never publicly acknowledged her, and the claims were largely brushed aside. But Ramir's success changes that perception, proving that persistence in court can force even the most powerful to answer. MSR's background adds weight to her narrative. She has spoken about growing up in a small town where everyone allegedly whispered about her father's identity. She described her mother's battles with severe illness and how she had to raise siblings while carrying a secret no one wanted. Two-faced publicly now, sources suggest her camp is feeling a renewed sense of confidence. With Ramir breaking through the legal wall that once seemed unshakable, she may see a chance to do the same. If she chooses to pursue her case, the timing could not be more dangerous for Jay-Z. Instead of closing the book with one judgment, he could be facing the beginning of multiple paternity battles. Two separate claims, both tied to decades-old allegations, would be nearly impossible to control in the public eye. For a man whose empire depends on image, it could spark a chain reaction with no clear end.
Jay was more quiet. But I mean, I learned that Jay was being quiet because he was taking notes. He was taking notes, observing everything, taking it all in. Because, sometimes you're around and you're watching to see things to do. But some people are around.
Even more troubling are the claims tied to a former friend of Letta Moser. According to this account, Jay-Z allegedly purchased her a home in Cambridge, Maryland, and has quietly covered her expenses for years. The arrangement, they claim, comes with strict conditions, including a ban on displaying his photo inside her home. While these claims have circulated before, they have never been pressed with legal weight. Jay-Z has avoided addressing the allegations directly, choosing silence as his shield. But in the aftermath of Ramir's courtroom victory, that silence might no longer be sustainable. Each unanswered accusation now carries the potential to look like avoidance rather than denial. And in a public climate where perception can be as damaging as proof, ignoring the claims could deepen the damage if Masser decides to move forward and reveal new evidence. The consequences could be significant. Some within her circle insist that she has more to show, more to tell, and more to prove than has ever been made public. Should that information come to light, the narrative could quickly shift from a reluctant father storyline to one of serial denial. That shift in framing would cut deeper than a personal scandal. It would stain Jay-Z's reputation as a public figure who has long been positioned as a role model, entrepreneur, and cultural leader for an artist whose influence rests not just on music but on business credibility. The fallout could strike both reputation and revenue.
Weirdo. I don't give no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me.
The fragility of Jay-Z's empire is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. ROC Nation, Tidal, and DS Cognac all depend on an image built around control, influence, and credibility. Without that foundation, the confidence holding those ventures together begins to falter. Corporate partners are drawn to stability, not scandal. And right now, Jay-Z has become the embodiment of uncertainty. Every allegation tied to past underage relationships and every association with controversial figures chips away at the trust that keeps his business network intact. Beyonce's position is even more delicate than his. She is not only his wife, but a global brand in her own right, a name that drives tours, fashion, film, and fragrance. Her image has been built on discipline and perfection, which leaves little room for scandal by association. Staying publicly aligned with Jay-Z through an extended courtroom crisis could dilute the very brand power that fuels her empire. Yet walking away too soon risks her being seen as abandoning him in the middle of chaos. This balancing act is said to be reaching its limit. According to those close to her, patience is running thin. The options before her are all costly, but the cost of inaction may be the highest of all. She continues to stand beside him without resolution. Her name could become tethered to a narrative that is not hers to control. And for someone whose career has thrived on commanding the narrative, that may be the greatest threat of all. Interview 2-543-551. This is the point where personal life and professional image begin to overlap in ways that are harder to separate. The possibility of both Ramir and Lita pushing their cases forward at the same time raises the stakes. If their claims overlap in court, it could create confusion that draws even more public attention. Each witness, document, or statement that surfaces would add another layer to the story. With each passing day, it becomes less about private matters and more about headlines. The shift from legal battle to public narrative would be almost impossible to avoid. For Beyonce, this presents a different kind of challenge. Her public appearances are tied to her reputation for discipline and control. But even small questions whispered at events can carry weight. Those close to her say the repeated conversations behind the scenes have made her consider her next steps carefully. It is not only a question of her marriage, but also how her choices affect her position as a mother and a figure recognized worldwide. Each option carries risks, and waiting too long could make those risks greater. The balance she has always maintained is now under pressure. The couple once stood as an example of strength and unity in the music industry, presenting themselves as untouchable. Now, that same image is being tested by overlapping legal disputes and growing attention on their personal lives. If the cases continue to move forward and new details emerge, the way they are viewed publicly could shift dramatically. What was once seen as powerful and unshakable may begin to look fragile. If the strain deepens, the story could turn from admiration to caution far sooner than expected.
What I look for. When I see a success, I'm looking for anything
to say that they didn't do it on their own?
Detain it.
Behind all of this, the feeling of inevitability keeps building in the background. For years, Jay-Z has been able to protect certain parts of his past through legal maneuvers and a strong defense team. That approach has allowed him to avoid direct accountability in situations where others might not have been as fortunate. The weight of public scrutiny combined with ongoing litigation makes it harder to keep those same doors closed. What once seemed like a distant threat is now moving closer. Each case adds pressure, narrowing the options left for him. Courts operate differently than the music industry or public opinion. And celebrity mystique has little influence when evidence and judgments are presented. The recent victory by Ramir has already shown that cracks exist in the protection Jay-Z has relied on. That billion-dollar outcome didn't just make headlines. It signaled to others that persistence could be rewarded. Now, the idea that past claims might resurface carries more weight than ever before. For every quiet dismissal, there is now a chance of a renewed fight. The question is, how many more can he withstand?
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, They don't want it to get out to the general public to make a...
The numbers alone are staggering, and they are only the starting point. A $1.6 billion judgment isn't just another bill to pay that acts like a wrecking ball aimed directly at the core of Jay-Z's empire. Roc Nation's roster of artists, its sports division, and its publishing arm all sit under the weight of this financial cloud. Even long-standing partners will be rethinking their positions. The pressure isn't just on one part of the business, touches every corner. That reach makes the situation far more difficult to contain. If the full payment is enforced, the ripple effects could be harsh. Major assets may need to be sold quickly just to stay ahead of the judgment. This includes his stake in Tidal, as well as investments in luxury beverages and other ventures. Fire sales often mean letting go of valuable stakes for much less than they're worth. The damage isn't only financial, but reputational as well. Once these sales begin, the perception of control starts slipping. That shift can be more damaging than the loss of cash alone. The optics of a mogul scrambling to liquidate are hard to overlook. In an industry where confidence shapes everything, panic can spread fast. Business partners may distance themselves to avoid risk. Investors might start pulling back, waiting to see if the empire holds or cracks further. These moves create momentum that is difficult to reverse. Every step taken under pressure will be closely examined. And in that environment, even small decisions carry outsized consequences.
This morning, rap mogul Jay-Z is denying allegations he assaulted a 13-year-old girl alongside rapper Sean Diddy Combs. That civil lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was assaulted by both
in Hyrie's offices and private lounges where major deals happen. Quiet talks have already begun. Investors are holding emergency meetings, and marketing teams are working to remove Jay-Z's image from upcoming campaigns. One luxury brand has even put a joint release on hold until further notice. These moves show how quickly business partners react when uncertainty surrounds a name. At this point, the matter isn't only about guilt or innocence in a legal sense. The real issue is association and how it affects business relationships. In industries built on image and reputation, even the smallest rumor can shift the ground beneath someone's feet. Partners often distance themselves early to avoid potential fallout, each passing day with the judgment left unsettled makes the situation more difficult to repair. The uncertainty lingers, and the perception of instability grows stronger. Once that perception sets in, it becomes harder to reverse, no matter what the actual outcome is. This is the challenge Jay-Z now faces in maintaining his standing.
There are people who did short sales on their stocks right after that, made a lot of money, including Sean Carter. Now I'm going to ask you, why would non-disclosure agreements need to be signed for an accident?
What makes this situation more unsettling is how quickly one courtroom setback has revived the narrative about secret children. Ramir's win isn't being seen. In isolation, it's viewed as the first crack in a dam that has been under strain for years. With that shift, old stories are resurfacing, and the past is being revisited with new force. One story gaining renewed attention is that of Letitia Mayer. Her claims had been pushed aside for years, but now they are resurfacing with fresh intensity. People who remember her situation recall the family members who allegedly connected her mother to Jay-Z. The whispers from her small town never fully disappeared. On social media, voices are louder than before, with many saying Letitia has stayed silent far too long. That pressure is fueling speculation about her next move. If she brings her case to court with the same determination Ramir showed, the timing could prove damaging. For Jay-Z, the fallout could be difficult to contain.
I know so much on how you got where you are, how you stepped on many people.
Industry insiders are now raising an uncomfortable question. If there are already 2 claims, could there be more? Over the years, other allegations have surfaced in gossip columns but were quickly brushed aside. At the time, they faded without much attention. But the situation has shifted in light of recent events, with a billion-dollar judgment now part of the public record. Old whispers are being revisited. Stories once dismissed are suddenly gaining new relevance. The climate has changed, and people are re-examining what was once ignored. Perception is shaping how the past is now being read. One detail fueling the speculation is the refusal to take a DNA test. What once seemed like a common celebrity decision for privacy now appears suspicious. To many, it looks like resistance to the truth. Each no comment only adds to the sense that more claims could still surface.
And we may actually see one of the biggest divorces in Hollywood is because Jay-Z is up next to be exposed.
The personal strain is becoming harder to ignore. Those close to the Carters describe a household under pressure, with schedules constantly adjusted and public appearances kept to a minimum. The atmosphere feels like one of ongoing damage control. Beyonce's team, known for their precision in managing her image, are reportedly stretched thin. Their focus now is on shielding her brand from the fallout. As the paternity stories continue to circulate, the public conversation shifts away from music and artistry. Instead, attention turns toward a complicated legacy filled with unanswered questions. For someone like Jay-Z, who has built an identity on control and untouchability, this is a troubling development. He has always decided what parts of his story to reveal, keeping the rest protected by legal barriers. Now, those barriers are being forced open not by industry rivals, but by people making personal claims tied to his bloodline. Once the public starts to believe there is a pattern, it becomes nearly impossible to change that perception. This overlap of financial vulnerability and reputational damage makes the storm especially dangerous. Losing one is recoverable, losing both is far harder. The risk becomes clearer when imagining the headlines. If Jay-Z is scrambling to manage a billion-dollar judgment and another lawsuit from an alleged child emerges, the effect could be devastating. Each new claim would add weight, and the media would begin linking past rumors to present realities. The momentum could quickly build beyond his control. In that scenario, it would resemble a slow-motion collapse, the kind even the best publicist couldn't reframe into a redemption story. Each development would feed the idea of a pattern, eroding trust in his carefully managed image. For someone who has long shaped his narrative, the unraveling would strike at the core of his life.
Responsibility for what he did as an individual. Sean is the one who pulled that gun out. Sean is the one who shot. So he has to take responsibility for that.
Even longtime allies who stood by him during past controversies now appear hesitant to remain close. His ties to other embattled figures in the entertainment industry are drawing fresh attention. While no direct connection has been proven in certain situations, the associations alone raise concern. For cautious partners, even the perception of risk is enough reason to distance themselves. Each day without a clear and confident public response gives rivals and critics more room to define the story. Across Hollywood, the situation has quietly become a test of loyalty. Some of Jay-Z's oldest collaborators are choosing silence, watching from a distance rather than defending him. Their hesitation reflects how fragile public alliances can be. Since Ramir's court victory, the silence from certain figures has been especially noticeable. Kanye West, whose relationship with Jay-Z has shifted between brotherhood and rivalry, has avoided speaking out. Rihanna, one of ROC Nation's most successful artists, has also chosen not to acknowledge the situation. Even indirectly, the absence of statements from these high-profile names speaks volumes. Their silence isn't simply about avoiding gossips, about steering clear of unpredictable fallout. Publicly attaching themselves to the controversy could expose them to the same scrutiny. In an industry built on reputation, silence often speaks louder than words.
As far as Is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he has to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
Other side. Some have used this moment to reignite old grievances. 50 Cent, who rarely avoids controversy, has taken repeated shots at Jay-Z's refusal to take a DNA test. Through social media, he has turned the paternity case into a meme-filled spectacle. His jabs land not only as personal attacks, but also as signals to the industry that Jay-Z's shield of reverence is weakening. In an industry where perception often shapes business opportunities, ridicule from a rival of equal stature carries weight. It chips away at the aura of untouchability Jay-Z once enjoyed. Public mockery can shift the balance, making others reconsider their alliances. A single rival's voice can magnify doubts already circulating. The divided reactions reveal an unspoken calculation at play. Those choosing silence may be carefully weighing their own vulnerabilities. They recognize that if Jay-Z suffers a full-scale collapse, the impact could reach far beyond him. Ties and ventures that once felt secure could suddenly be questioned. The entertainment world is deeply interconnected, built on shared investments and private understandings. A downfall at the top tier can easily ripple outward, dragging down anyone too closely tied. Silence in this environment is less about indifference than about survival. Many seem to be betting the storm will pass without forcing them to pick side.
How do you know I'm not a gangster? Or used to be a gangster? I've been in the music industry for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, the industry is filled with gangsters.
Another factor shaping reactions is influence. Jay-Z's network, built over decades, stretches into corporate partnerships, award committees, and philanthropic boards. Speaking out against him could risk not only personal relationships, but also profitable opportunities tied to those connections. The reach of his influence remains difficult to ignore. Industry veterans understand that such networks are not dismantled quickly. Even in the midst of scandal, power tends to maintain its pull. For many, distancing themselves outright could mean losing access to valuable circles that shape careers and business ventures. The decision is rarely simple. The hesitation to act is not only about loyalty, but also about fear of consequences. Public denouncement could bring retaliation or exclusion from opportunities connected to Jay-Z's orbit. For some, silence becomes a way to protect both reputation and access. This balance of risk is what keeps many on the sidelines.
I can only say as a father that I hope I instill with them the values that they would want to look for in a man. And I think I did when Beyonce wrote on her, I think it was her first album, maybe it was the second one, the song Daddy, that she hoped that she found someone just like her dad.
For the longer this divide lingers, the more it fuels speculation that the entertainment elite follow an unspoken pact. The idea is simple: protect one another, even if it comes at the cost of transparency. In that view, the silence of Jay-Z's allies looks less like caution and more like coordination. The goal is to avoid setting a precedent where private behavior turns into public liability. This fear raises a larger question: if Jay-Z falls, who might be next? That thought hangs heavily, like a warning across the industry. In a business built on image, decisions to step in or step back often come down to survival, not morality. The balance of protecting oneself versus showing loyalty is rarely straightforward. Still, the question remains whether Jay-Z's resources, influence, and cultural reach can shield him once again. History shows that powerful figures in this industry have survived multiple scandals. They were often supported by the same networks, now showing signs of strain. The difference this time is the scale of the pressure. This is no longer about one controversy, it's a multi-front challenge. It tests the endurance of legal teams, the loyalty of business partners, and the stability of his personal life. Just as importantly, it pushes against the patience of the public. And once that patience wears thin, rebuilding trust becomes nearly impossible.
How did you feel initially when Beyonce started dating Jay-Z, who is very successful, but he's also, generally considered a gangster rapper?
We are now at a moment that feels like a turning point. One path could see Jay-Z fight his way back, relying on wealth and influence to settle disputes, silence critics, and regain stability. The other path paints a much different picture. An empire breaking apart with assets lost, alliances weakened, and a legacy reshaped through courtroom records. Instead of music, the central question is whether this scandal will finally bring down one of the industry's most untouchable figures. Or will the same power and influence that built him allow him to escape once more? The answer could shape not just his future, but the broader culture of the music world. Share your thoughts below. Because this is a story with the potential to redefine how power and accountability intersect in the industry. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep watching closely. The next headline could drop at any moment.